I'm currently standing on the roof of my 5-story multi-generational passive ICF house that I've been DIY building and doing it mostly on my own. So recently got an interesting question in my YouTube comments in terms of structural engineers. So first off, structural engineers aren't necessarily cheap. And you really need to be very, very, very careful on who you hire as your structural engineer. So I ended up working with a total of 2 different structural engineering firms. First one, to say the least, was a massive mistake. Let me repeat that again. Massive, very expensive mistake. And the reason why is because this particular structural engineering firm, even though it was a large firm, they chose to have an unlicensed engineer work on it who didn't have any realistic ICF experience, didn't know what he was doing. I was having to read the engineering manual from the manufacturer and to correct the mistakes that this guy kept making. So my first piece of advice is, if you do decide to go ahead and go with the structural engineer, be sure to ask them a couple of basic questions. So one of the basic questions that you should ask them is, how wide of an opening are they comfortable engineering with ICF? Because this particular guy, he wasn't willing to use the ICF blocks to do even a 10-foot wide opening. He did not understand what an ICF lintel was, or how strong an ICF lintel could be, or what the rebar schedule and the stirrup schedule for an ICF lintel. And so if you are asking that question, run away as fast as you can if they say, oh yeah, no, the widest that we can do is like 6 feet. Another thing that you need to ask them about is make sure that they understand the horizontal rebar schedule, and don't let them try to convince you that it needs to be every 8 inches horizontally. All the ICF manufacturers are designed more for 16 inches in terms of the horizontal rebar schedule, and they need to understand how the ICF blocks work, with rebar. And if they don't understand the ICF blocks, because most of the time when you're dealing with structural engineers, they're used to dealing with concrete walls and the traditional forms, not necessarily ICF blocks. So if they're not comfortable with doing a rebar schedule with regular ICF blocks, run as fast as you can. Okay, so the big question is, do you need a structural engineer? And my 2 cents, well, obviously it totally depends on your city, because if your city requires it, then do not pass go, do not collect $200, go pay your structural engineer to engineer the thing for you. So for example, this city over here does not require a structural engineer if you're only going to put in a basement and a single story ICF home. So that'll save you thousands and thousands of dollars. This city over here, where I'm at, they're not as comfortable, I guess, with ICF, and so they absolutely do require a structural engineer. In my case, let me show you what it looks like in my case. Like I said before, my case, it's a 5-story building. There is no way in the world that I would have constructed something, especially because right up there on that hill is a earthquake fault zone that when it rips, it's projected to be about a 7.0 or so. So I live in an earthquake zone. That was something that the first structural engineer was completely clueless on. I mean, I've got a stamped set of plans that would have killed my family had we gone with the first structural engineering firm. Literally would have killed my family in an earthquake. And I had to point out to him, what you're saying, what you just sent a stamped set of plans for, is not designed for an earthquake zone, but I digress. So 100% yes, I paid the thousands and thousands of dollars for a structural engineer to engineer this house. It's 48 feet tall and over 1 million pounds of concrete, and so well worth every single penny. The other thing that my city required me to do is to get a geotechnical engineering report, and that also set me back like $2,500. But in reality, it's a good thing because, like I said, there's 1 million pounds of concrete that is sitting on, in my case, rubble rock. And by having that report, it made it so that my second structural engineer didn't have to way over engineer the footers. Because the first structural engineer, like I said, was clueless and way over engineered the size of the footers to the tune of thousands and thousands of dollars of concrete, just because, like I said, the guy wasn't licensed. And so I guess when you're not licensed, you don't know what you're doing, and so there's that fear factor. And so he just would way over engineer stuff. And so ultimately it was a flat rate contract. I paid them what I owed them and walked away from all of that time and money, and went with a significantly smaller engineering firm, significantly smaller, but they actually had licensed engineers who had experience in designing ICF homes, who understood the ICF blocks, who knew how to do wide openings with rebar and with stirrups, and how to actually create a concrete lintel. So one of the things that I'd recommend is, when you're deciding on which structural engineering firm to go with, is ask to look at a set of plans that they've done for somebody else, because that'll really clue you in on if they know what in the world that they're doing. So hopefully this little video has been helpful, and I should get back to putting in more of my roof rafters, because there's snow coming next week. So be sure to like and subscribe so you can follow along on this crazy journey, and thanks for watching.